You know something big has happened overnight when you turn on your computer and notice that Warhammer Community has a giant new post that says, "Hey, there's big news," and then your TGA community page is pretty much blown up with notifications. So let's go ahead and go through the news. I think the first thing to cover is probably the one that I'm a little more interested in, or about middle of the road interested in as far as Age of Sigmar is concerned. The new death model that they're showing here, from those of you who have played Warhammer Fantasy might recognize this as the Purple Sun of Xeris. Interesting dragon in front in the first picture, but when you get around to looking at the model itself, it's kind of interesting looking. You don't know what to think of it when you look at it. Is it terrain? Is it movable? How exactly does it play in the game? If it's supposed to be kind of some condensed magic or elemental magic from the realm of death. What I like most about this shot is all of the runes that are in the back. Now, I don't believe we've seen anything very similar to these runes. They don't look like 40k terrain. They look like actual Age of Sigmar dedicated terrain. And they're not anything like the Azerite runes that we just recently got, although they fit the motif quite well. Moving on to kind of the next thing, the Death Faction preview or whatnot. A lot of this first few shots is some older terrain, but I will focus in on this one shot here, because the little figure that's currently put on the Arcane Ruins here isn't the exact same one, or I don't think this occurs in the box, or at least I can't find it among my bits from when I assembled those kits. So I think the Arcane Runes are looking to get a repack and reprinting. So next image, a wheel with the Spectral Wisp coming out the bag. Now this is definitely new, and it's interesting because I don't think there's anything with wheels on it that currently has kind of this spectral, ghostly looking wisp. And the next image, the lantern, is kind of what... Now, a lot of the robes kind of in front give me this ideal that it's a Black Coach or a Black Coach remake. But I look at the lantern and I can't help but think that it looks quite like an hourglass, and that we had some recent run-in during the Malign Portents event with time magic that changed a few things. So I can't help but think that this actually has some connection here. More ghostly whips in this one. Maybe you can find something in the background. I couldn't see anything. And then what I think here, or what I can see here, is two skeletal horses that are side by side with a mounting on it. And I'm not positive, but I think there's something in front of it, and I think it's another skeletal horse in front of both of those two. And finally, I can't tell if this is the front of those horses with the kind of a spear jutting out front as if this was a chariot, or if this is actually part of the big part that the horses are carrying along. But just kind of an interesting little piece. I can't tell if there's too much more to this faction as it is. But I think enough about that. Let's get on to the really important information we got. The Idoneth Deepkin, as they're called, the brand new elves that I remember the rumors going out originally were that we were going to get Cthulhu elves or something like that. And I'm so glad that it's not Cthulhu elves, because I hate that Lovecraft crap. So the video starts out with narration, which if you've heard any of the rumors about the Idoneth Deepkin, this seems to be Teclis's first shot at rebuilding the High Elves. And we get some pretty good images. The first image and the third image are from End Times Kane, and the other two of these first four are from End Times Archaon, and really just depicts, I think, a sea battle that had happened, the battle between, or the final battle between Malekith and Tyrion in the old world. You have the chaos waste or whatever it is, just ripping apart the old world. And then you also have Sigmar, of course, coming in as the shining star. And we're greeted by our first Deepkin model, which I really hate to say that I was disappointed in the moment it showed up. The White Ghost thing is kind of very similar to the Sylvaneth, I forget what the tree, the people that are half tree, half spirit. Really reminds me of that, and I think in this, it's not something I was looking forward for. It makes them feel like they're unused, but I think the good news here is that The armor that's kind of beneath it's pretty cool looking, and I think there's enough detail just in how the model is formed that you can always just throw on skin on top of that and build it or and paint it as an actual an actual elf warrior. Cool that the troop wields Naginata. Kind of a change from a lot of the other armaments that we've seen in the past. Next up is the Eel Riders, and the more I look at these, the more I like. This is the part of the army that really draws me in, the actual sea motif. When they actually go for it, it's very well done, and it doesn't stand out, and nothing seems too odd in it. Next, some archer dudes. There's enough variation in just the legs of the archer dudes that I feel like this needs to be a separate kit from I'm hoping that this is a separate kit from the first troops, because if it's not, then I'm going to be very disappointed in what I'll be able to build with these. More of the first looking dudes, although the one that's on the very left looks very different. It has a little bit of I want to say hair coming down the back. And I think based just kind of on the shape of it, it may be a female as well. Another two images of the Eel Riders, the first one wielding spears, the other one wielding swords. I do kind of like how you can change up the weaponry, but I've never liked how it doesn't make it really a completely different unit. Another image with the swords. And then we get two soldiers standing next to just another fantastic looking hero. This guy with the octopus, I shudder just how bad I'm going to do it, not being able to paint this thing as great as the model is actually sculpted. And the color schemes fit it very well, just go together pretty well. The one thing, I love how the octopus is holding all of these weapons, that you can tell it's actually a part of the model and not just something that's added on as a little detail. So we get the front of the ship, and I think everybody remembers this ship from, I want to say, a month or two ago, when we got this spoiler of a sunken ship that was being shown, and then it was, in a fish tank or whatnot. We'll see it throughout the whole spoiler, and I actually think it's not a model. I think it's part of a terrain piece. I like the chimes guy. It really makes me think that musicians as heroes and not just as additives to the unit are going to become a standard for new armies, going back to the Bile Piper for the Nurgle army. You can also see quite a bit of the runes in the back are just new, and there is another model back there which we're going to see later as well. This is another hero, and unfortunately the one thing I don't like about it is this large fish that's attached to the back of his hair. Larger bits just connected to the main model by thin plastic is a pet peeve of mine, because it's just asking to be broken off by accidentally knocking the model over. Also, there's more of the shipwreck in the background, which we'll see that throughout the whole thing. Another hero, it looks like a spellcaster this time, and again, another fish add-on that just makes the model look very annoying to build and paint. Now, I like this. I thought it was really cool. Quite a bit different from the Eel Riders. It's a shark rider with a freaking harpoon gun attached to its back. Just shows, you can do a little bit more detail, something a little bit bigger to add to the army, but still looks like it would be very fast and very mobile, and still attacking with bows. This is the bottom half of our next hero, and I love this thing. It's a very cool looking pirate that's attached on it looks like he's riding a Dracoth, but you can tell there's enough of a difference between just the bottom half of the model and a few details in the face that it looks more like a seahorse than it does like a Dracoth. So I'm impressed that they could build upon one of the older sculpts they did. More of the eels, pretty much the same eels that we had before. And then there's the model that I mentioned earlier. This thing looks awesome. Just this wizard that's kind of on this cloak. And I go back to the Stormcast model that has kind of trash or big wings and trash kind of flying around it. This is actually a model that belongs, or that looks like it belongs in a part of this army, as opposed to that one, which looks like was kind of added in as a separate piece. You can tell just there's all sorts of detail with the waves crashing up around the fish coming out of the inside of the cloak. This wizard has a lot of ocean, or just power with him in the ocean that just flows out from behind him. The top of our next model, I'll get back to the cool looking guy that all it looks like he's doing is playing the drums, and he's got this mask on it that I'm gonna bring up kind of later in the video. You got two dudes on him that are armed with crossbow harpoons that will probably be firing, and then this guy with a spear riding on the head of a giant turtle, just holding the reins, just keeping control of it, and just a view of everything, or a few other things. The front half of the ship is here, and there's no base along with it, which makes me think that it really is terrain. A little bit to the right, somebody on TGA mentioned that this is actually part of the Eldar terrain kit, but if they're going to keep it separate so that you can build quite a bit more on top of it, that I think that would be a good bit of model to add onto it. And there's plenty of chests and runes from the new Azerite runes kit as well. And with that, that's kind of the whole video. So there's only one other thing to note, and that's the two Silver Tower elves. And I don't believe that either of them really belongs to this army. The Mistweaver Saya has a lot of moon motif on her that doesn't really fit with anything else in this army. I didn't really see any moon motifs with it, even if it did look very elfish. Although the faceless kind of mask that's on there does lend into, the top of the turtle guy that I mentioned. The shard, the spines and daggers that he's wielding don't match any of the spines and daggers that any of the other Idoneth are holding. So I don't think he fits the motif, and I don't think he's a part of the army, even if that tentacle is lying there. So I think the biggest question for me going forward is whether or not I will be buying into the Idoneth Deepkin. And the answer to that, despite how much I love just looking at this model or these models, and even the one part I don't like the most, the main soldiers that they showed right up at the front, I still really love what this army is, and I can work around that by painting skin onto those. But will I be buying it? The answer to that, unfortunately, is probably no. Before I had been collecting pretty much everything. I have Ironjaw's, Fire Slayers, Seraphon. If you name a faction, I probably have a few models from it, or if not that, a better standing army of it. So what happened is that we had the battle forces back before Christmas of earlier this year. And when I looked through those, I realized that there's a lot of the things I would have probably bought in that army. If I hadn't bought something else beforehand, I probably would have picked up one of those battle force boxes and just done that as my army instead. And then when Start Collecting Caradron Overlords came out, it had everything that was part of what I wanted to buy for Caradron, or that I had bought for Caradron Overlords, but of course about $30 cheap. It was all bundled together in that Start Collecting deal. I really want to buy this, or these are all models that are really cool looking and something I would really like to buy, but because of that, I would say yes, I would buy it. But because the chances of Start Collecting boxes or Battle Force box at the very end of the year is likely to happen, I'm going to hold on to my money and wait until then. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. If I actually get a few more subscribers and a few more likers, I might actually start doing these a bit more often. So thanks for watching.